intrinsically, I don't think there's anything wrong with pornography. I think pornography has come down the ages in many different forms, probably from cave paintings to what we now think of as internet pornography, right? I think the issue is that I think there are two issues, and I think that's why people like to talk about it nowadays, because this is something we hardly talked about till the internet became sort of the beast that it's become, right? And I think the issues are, one is access. Basically, the internet has made it possible for everybody now to get online, adult or children, and to look at sexualized images, including images that are meant to arouse, right? The second thing is, so something that was actually much more furtive, secretive, etc., has suddenly come out in sort of like with a bang, right? Like in a public sort of way. I think the second thing is that we tend to think of pornography as one thing. So we tend to lump all sorts of porn, erotica, everything into one big thing, and then it's very difficult to tell what the issues are. So the way we actually did a really interesting workshop called Imagine a Feminist Internet, where we asked all the women and trans people present to do an exercise where they talked about what were the benefits of pornography and what were the harms. And what was really interesting was many of the women said that, in an age where you can actually get porn or images much more easily, or, of course, text, etc., and graphics, etc., that they were able to learn about many different kinds of sex from certain sites, which in the past it would have just been impossible, right? Like, where would you go? You'd have to go to some sort of shop and get some sort of video or whatever. It just seemed like very creepy and furtive and all that kind of stuff. At the same time, most of the women also said that the harms of pornography were, some of it was the same thing, right? Like that if you only learn about sex through porn, you come out with a certain impression of body types, the kind of sex women enjoy, etc., right? So I think part of the issue is that to deal with some of the excesses or real harms of pornography, we have to actually start talking about sex in different ways. And Paro and I were actually at the Godrej Culture Lab last month, meeting Cindy Gallop, who runs a website called Make Love Not Porn, which is very interesting because she actually puts up images of real people having sex with each other, which she calls social sex, right? And her thing is pretty much the same, that if you want to sort of deal with what is considered the actual, the harms, it's not necessarily about laws all the time, etc., right? Laws can deal with some harms, laws can't deal with all harms. But some of it is to have a conversation openly about sort of sex, etc.
I also think, in response to that question of censorship, that I don't think censorship has ever worked for anything. And the only way to, there may be things within pornography that disturb us, that perpetuate violence and sexism and misogyny. And the only way to counter it is actually with other types of images of sex. One of the reasons why all sex accumulates in pornography, which is often mainstream industrialized pornography, is because we don't want to talk about it anywhere else. We don't want to have it in movies. We don't want to read accounts of it. And actually, we're working on Agents of Ishq for just a year and a half and going out and talking to people about their sex lives, what we see is that everybody's obviously not just having sex, but it's quite beautiful and sophisticated and rich the way that people relate to their own sex lives, but they don't see it depicted anywhere. So actually what we have to do is counter that with the kind of sexual material that we think is beautiful and arousing and exciting and have that multiplicity, right?
And that's why I wanted us to go to fantasy, right? To really revive, this is exactly this question, which is really revive the place of fantasy. And actually, porn doesn't have to be, or sex talk doesn't have to be, in between friends. Sex talk can happen while you're having sex, right? So literally revive the place of fantasy. So, I think what everybody's saying is that porn has a place because nothing else has taken its place, right? And and porn has a lovely, very old and classical lineage in South Asia, if you want to call it that. But some of the best porn was porn written by Victorians for women, right? So one of the things that's interesting about porn is people often assume, your work shows something very different, so does yours, that it's for men. But actually a lot of Victorian porn is written for women to enjoy with other women, to read aloud, right? So why not revive that, you know?
I want to add something very quickly as well to what these wonderful women have already said, and that ties into the question earlier about education. For so many people, porn, as you said, Bushkha, is the only way that they learn about sex, because we don't provide good sex education in schools. I mean, I know in the Middle East and North Africa, there is zero sex education, and in the United States we have this ridiculous abstinence-only education that also gears you up for a lifetime of misery. So in the absence of that, you get young men and women who have zero knowledge about pleasure and desire and how to please their bodies. And in religious environments or conservative environments, you're not even allowed to explore your own body, to find out what you like, to masturbate, to explore. And then you're left with the question, you know, this kind of the most toxic of questions, am I normal? Is what I want okay? And there is no one to go to ask these questions. So of course, people of all age groups and all backgrounds will go online to find out what they can't find among friends, because we can't sit and have these discussions where we say there's no such thing as normal. We have to abolish that word normal, and we have to start educating each other and exchanging kind of like, you know, best practices about how best to masturbate, how everyone should use a vibrator, etc., etc. But those kind of conversations are non-existent. So until we have those conversations, porn will always be there as something that both titillates, but also that puzzles people because they can't find any real-life discussions of what quote-unquote normal is.
Okay, we're moving